Hello, everyone. Today we have Jay here. Jay
Hello.
is actually my high school mate. So I met him.
Yes.
We just discussed this like 18 years ago. I think about 18 years
Holy
ago. So
crap.
we had known each other for
So
quite
long
long,
ago.
and
Yeah.
I think you still never change. And
I,
now,
I would like to think so.
yeah, definitely more better in your craft. And just
Thank
let
you.
me introduce Jay a little bit. So Jay is actually now a producer at the James Altucher Show,
Mhm.
and he is an audio engineer. He's doing audio production, and um, well, I'm just getting this from your LinkedIn profile, actually.
Yeah, like profile.
Jay is a very
So,
passionate
yeah.
person when it comes to music. Definitely
Yes.
from when I knew him as well, because I still remember him asking me, "Oh, Sean, why are you good at arrangement?" Or back at that time, and we talk
Yeah,
about
because I
music.
remember. Yeah, because somehow I remember you play piano.
Yeah,
Somehow I knew you play piano. I don't know how, but somehow I knew.
I can't remember, but yeah,
Yeah, I
I
wonder if
do.
you were like reading, maybe you were reading some scores or something in the school, and you're like, "Hey, you play
May
piano or something."
couldn't remember, but it was
Yeah.
I think that was how we sort of connected through
Yes.
music, and yeah, my background in
Yeah.
classical music.
Yes.
And so Jay actually graduated from Full Sail University,
Hmm.
and received 7 awards, which including valedictorian. Wow, that is
Thank you.
amazing. And he has 8 years of audio engineering experience. Is it?
Right.
Yeah,
It's more now. Like I
more
just
now.
didn't update it.
More
Yeah.
okay. More now, and he's worked with many artists like Mike Stern, Benedict Cumberbatch, and voiceover work for Disney, um,
Yes.
Alex Jacoby, and Chinese and Malaysian artists like Gary
Yes.
Chow, Su Wincy, Name V, and
Yes.
also yeah, I said an audio producer now at the James Altucher Show. Has delivered files for editing for guests like Arianna Huffington,
Hmm.
who else? Seth Godin, Gary Vaynerchuck. I love all these
Yep.
people. uh,
Do you
really,
like Gary
Gary,
V?
yeah, and
Oh,
yeah, yes,
he's a
no,
cool guy.
yeah. What else? So, welcome to this to my channel today. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see. Uh, I'd like to know more about what is actually I didn't know. I really don't know a lot about audio engineering and what's it like
Oh,
to
it's gonna
become
be
a
fun.
tech producer. So maybe can you share with us some what do you really do as an audio engineer or tech
Oh
producer?
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. Well, before we start, I'm just curious. What's your channel's gonna call? Or what's your
Sean's Universe.
channel's called?
Sean's Universe.
Shang's Universe. Oh man, that's a great name. That's a great name. Because like it's funny because I actually pitched James
Uh-huh.
an idea.
Mhm.
It's called Altucher University. So it's similar,
Yes.
you know? Yeah, because you want to educate people, you want to like
Mhm.
tell people how things work, you want to share your opinion with people. That's actually very smart. Anyway, so what a tech producer and audio engineer? Well, the short answer is the person behind a desk that press the record button. That's a very short answer. This is a big red button to press it.
That's a
But
very
the long
humble
the
answer.
yeah. I mean, you don't have to care about
Mhm.
anything else. Just press the red button. But the long answer is a little bit more deeper than that. So
Mhm.
as an audio engineer, I'm gonna start as engineer first because that's the most basic thing we have to do
Mhm.
before we record any session is we have to make sure everything is totally fine in terms of technicality, in terms of like I'll make sure the computer is set up. I'll make sure the recording software is set up, microphone is set up, make sure nothing is wrong. So
Mhm.
when I was in studio, before so let's say the interview start at 12 o'clock. I usually show up at 11:30 or 11 o'clock, just start setting everything up
Mhm.
and mic check everything. We call it line check to make sure everything got signal, because you can't really mic check without the guest there or the host there, right? Because
Yes.
everyone's voice is different, everyone's speak differently. So just make sure everything is running fine and make sure the computer doesn't crash. This is the hardest part. Back in 2012, 2013, computer isn't exactly great back then. It crashed very easily. So we have to make sure nothing crash. We have to make sure we set up a backup version of whatever we are recording, in terms of, like, let's say we are recording 2-person. We'll make sure, other than the 2 mics that we're recording on the computer, we also recording it somewhere else, just in case the computer fail. Yeah, because for podcasting, at least, everything is live, right? So if you lost something, you lost a part of the conversations that you're never gonna get back, because the first is always the most genuine reactions. So yeah, that's for the podcasting part. For the audio part, we just have to back up every time you're done recording, that we just back it up. So that's the technical side of it, of things. So I always tell people, as an engineer, we are not exactly in like a product industry or whatever. We are in the service industry, so we have to make sure everyone is comfortable. That's why I'm goofy all the time, because I just have to make sure there's no like tensions, and new guest comes in, we have to talk to them, have to warm them up before they go to a show. So let's say, like, Sean, when you have a show, every time you have a guest come on, I'm sure you talk to them first before you start recording, right? You warm them up first.
Yeah.
So like you get to know about them, you warm them up so they are a little bit open. It's almost like performance a little bit, like you play piano. Because before you go on stage, before you go for the exam or test, you have to warm up your finger first, right? And then you have to practice to warm up, so you can't just walk up and start playing. So
Yes.
that's essentially the audio engineer part of it. The tech producer part of it is a little bit more involved, in terms of, like, I have to start planning what type of productions I'm going for. So let's say we are in a studio right now, right? And then before everything starts, I would talk to the host, talk to the producer, or talk to everyone that's involved. Like, what type of shows are you doing? Are you doing an interview show? Are you doing a interview with videos? Are you doing narratives, voiceovers? So I have to plan the setup accordingly. So, like, interview, I just set up 2 microphones into a mixer or preamp or whatever into the computer and call it a day and record. And then, but for, let's say they need video, we have to sort of plan out where they're gonna set up the cameras, because the audio is more behind the scene type of thing. So visual always come first. No matter if it's audio podcast, if they have video always come first. So you will coordinate with the videographer or video op or camera operator, ask them where they want the camera and how they want the shot. And then you have to decide if you either want to hide the microphone, or they are fine with microphone in the frame. Then you set up accordingly, and then you have to clean everything around it, make sure it looks nice. And then that's basically the tech producer part of it.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Once you do it enough, you'll probably like, oh yeah, this is like a routine. So you always have checklists, like this is what you would do. Yeah.
Definitely sounds more professional than what I'm doing now.
Well, everyone has to start somewhere. I remember, I mean, as you know me, like when we were younger, when we were in high school. Is it high school or secondary school? I felt like high school is different.
Secondary school, whatever you
secondary
call it.
School, right? Yeah, wherever we call it. Yeah, I felt like in high school, I'm always into like music, and then I was also always into audio. Like back then, the school that we were at, Subang Utama. I was in the Chinese club, and then my senior is like, "Hey, you like audio? You like music? Let's do audio." We only have 2 microphones, and then we only have like 2 crappy microphone, and we have like 2 amplifier that no one else know how to work it out. So I have to through trial and error to make sure it works. And then back then we are like what, 16, 17. So we don't exactly has that much knowledge, and we are on a school budget. School never have budget for anything.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of makeshift and MacGyver a little bit of how things work. So like what you're doing right now, everyone's gonna start somewhere. Like
Mhm.
eventually you will get a microphone, and then
Yeah.
eventually you will learn how to use a microphone.
Yes.
And then eventually you will start like, okay, maybe I can do this, maybe I could do that. And then you start talking to people, or like you reach out to me, and then I can be like, hey, maybe you should do this way, because I just love like technical stuff.
Technical stuff. You mean like
Yeah.
the setting up the technical stuff,
Yeah,
making sure.
yeah, making sure everything is fine,
Mhm.
or making sure what microphone you are using, what microphone you should get, what do you need, an audio interface, or can you record straight into your computer, what type of lights can you get within your budget, and what type of camera you can get within your budget, or you want to go with webcam. And then on top of that, what software should you be using, or do you want to use?
All right. Would you like to share a little bit? Okay, so I think you talk about how passionate you are, like since high school back then. Do you have any would you like to share your journey, how you get to where you are today, or any challenges along the way? Anything you'd like to share?
the
That
the
for someone
journey
who are interested to become an audio engineer.
the journey is to get an mean ex-girlfriend. Yeah, because the whole reason I'm in the States right now is because of my ex girlfriends. Like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
if you never go to the States, we're gonna break up. So ultimately, I'm like, okay, sure, I'll go to the state, and then we broke up eventually anyway. But okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, I think I mean, I love music when I was younger, as you know, like when I was like 15. I think at age 15, I already know I wanted to be an audio engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think 15 and 16. So back then in Malaysia, we love to go to tuitions, right? We go tuitions every day, you know.
Do you? I thought you don't go to
So
tuition.
I go to
You do.
tuitions, man.
Okay.
I have no free time. But even though I go to tuitions, I still didn't get that much of a grade, because I wasn't interested in geography or history or whatever. So when I was 15, I knew I wanted to be an audio engineer, because I remember one of my tuitions teacher, he has a junior that actually go to this school called SAE, School of Audio Engineering, and eventually become an audio engineer and
Mm-hmm.
became a star in Malaysia. So I'm like, okay, I wanted to be an audio engineer. So I only started focus on these three subjects: math, English, and physics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only 3A that I get on the final exam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so from that point on, like I clearly know what I wanted to do. I know what I'm good at, because even when I was younger, we have something called cassette. We have no CD. No, so yeah, we have CD. CD was pretty new then. And then my dad's car only have a cassette player. So nothing else, has a cassette player. So I loved listening to music. So I essentially, what I did is I figure out a way that I can record from CD to cassette. So I will make my own mixtape that way, so I can listen into a car. I make like 5 of them. And then I'm like, this is fun. And then I sort of started hack a computer together, as in like put different parts together. I find like an old microphone. I'm like, maybe I can record something using this microphone. It
Mm-hmm.
sounded awful. So I'm like, why does it sound awful? Why does it sound like my microphone's popping all the time? For those people who don't know what's popping, popping is like this all the time.
Yeah.
So, and then I figure out, maybe I could tape a paper towel or tissue paper around the microphone. It will eliminate the pop. So
Yes.
I started doing that, and then it worked. And then I'm like, I may be good at this. So
Wow.
I'm like, maybe I should just start doing audio stuff. So yeah. But the funny thing is, it's very different then and now. Is back then, because back then I didn't work. I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not from like crazy wealthy family. So like for me, felt back then felt like the less options you have, the more creative you're gonna get.
Definitely. I agree.
Yeah, because like if I have the money, I'm just gonna go out and buy a microphone. I wouldn't think of like maybe I put a tissue paper around this thing, or maybe I hack the computer together and do something. And yeah. So sometimes the less resources you have, I would say the less options you have, the more creative you will get.
Yeah, I think one thing we are learning from here is be grateful if if you think you have lack of resources, because you are actually becoming more
Yeah.
creative in what you do.
So okay. So the let's get back to my stories, and
Yeah.
then eventually I maxed it. We graduated. That's where we parted ways. We graduated, and then I went. I know exactly what I want to do, and then
Mm-hmm.
I went to this school called School of Audio Engineering
Mm-hmm.
(SAE). That was in Subang. I think it's
Yeah.
in Taipan.
Yeah.
Um, for started doing started there, and then but I felt like something is lacking. Uh, when I went to school, I'm like, I like this, but I felt like I can't get enough practice. That's only that much stuff you can do in school.
Yeah. Yeah.
You think that can you actually practice in school?
Mm-hmm.
So I just started asking around, and
Mm-hmm.
then I remember then I was taking guitar lessons with this gentleman that I can't remember what's his name anymore. It was that long ago. And then he's like, "Hey, my brother run a studio. He don't own a studio, but he run the studios. Do you want to meet him?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And I still remember the studio was like at least 45 minutes away from where we live. And then I remember my mom and dad's like, my parents are like, "You sure you want to do this? It's so far. It's strangers. You don't want to do anything with strangers." Like any Asian mom would say it. Any Asian parent would say it. Like never talk to strangers. I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine." So before I met him and before I took the internship in the studio, my parents drove me all the way to the studio. It was pretty embarrassing. And then we just met with that guy again. And then essentially he's like, "Yeah, sure. Come in every day. I remember every 2 days a week for a couple hours so I can learn." So that's how I actually started. So when I was 18, this is how I started my professional journey. Is when I was 18. I was no, not 18. Sorry, when I was 17. Wait, we graduated 17. Yeah, 18. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 18, I went to this school, but at the same time, I was interning in a studio. So I already started interning in a studio. I already started applying what I learned that day in a studio, and maybe more because in a studio, as an intern, you learn a lot more. The reason why being an intern you learn a lot more is, for me, I don't know how you learn. For me, I learned by observing. I didn't ask
Same.
questions. Yeah, I don't ask questions right away because in traditional studio, as an intern, you're supposed to be like a ninja. You're supposed to be invisible. You're supposed to be there just just to stand by in case anyone need anything. And a lot of time they don't even want you there. So what you do and what I did is I would make up an excuse. I would just bring water in, like, "Hey, do you guys want water? You guys want water?" And then when I give everyone water, and I would just stand there and just see what they're doing, and then I will leave. And then I will always check in as a, like, because studio there's a window that we can see through. I would always check, like, do they have enough water? Do they not enough water? I would always like make sure I bring in water. Like, "Hey, here's some of water." And before I leave, I would just look at what they're doing, how they're talking, and then essentially I built a relationship with the engineer. And he's like, "Yeah, you can sit in." So when the engineer is in the studio, I would just sit in on the corner. Make sure everyone has water still, because that's the most important part. Make sure everyone's is taken care of. And then that's how I learned step by step how to record, how to mix, how to route, how to plan everything uh, before a sessions. And yeah, essentially, I met my crazy ex girlfriend, and then she sort of forced me to go to the States, which I wanted to go anyway, but I didn't think it's possible. You know, when I was
Yeah.
younger, I always thought this is my world. This is how
Yes.
big
Yes.
my world is. Like I never know I can go outside of Malaysia. You know, so I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I will go and see what I can learn, and then I went to Florida, went to Full Sail, and I loved it. I loved it. I'm like, this is great. I get to meet so many different people, and there's a certain type of music culture that you can get here that you can't get in Malaysia or in
Yeah.
Asia. So back then, now it's different. Now it's more globalized,
Yeah.
more global. Back then it's like the two world is still pretty separate.
Mm.
There's like hardly any connections
Mm.
between the two worlds. Now they bridge the connections a little bit better. So I got to Florida, went to school for a year, filled a bunch of interview because I suck at interviewing, I guess. And then I went, and then my friends like, hey, come to New York. That's fun in New York. You want to be in New York. You don't want to be in Florida. New York is the place to be. And then I'm like, sure, let's go to New York. What can I lose? What else can I lose? I have nothing then. My parent, I'm grateful that my parents, managed to support me all the way. And then when I went to New York, I found, I met all these friends, and my rent was really cheap because I have 5 roommates. I still remember my rent was like $500. That's not There's no way you can get in New York anymore. So I was there and in New York, and then that's how it happened. I went to a legendary studio that I wanted to intern. I went there. They're like, sure, you can intern, and then they fired me.
Okay.
Yeah, well, because like maybe because I was just too happy. I would
Mhm.
like to think that I was too happy because when I went into the studio, everyone's like zombie. Everyone's hated their job. Everyone's like, this sucks because they probably have like 12 hours or 16-hour sessions that they just had to do, and then the client was demanding and all that stuff. And then I came in, I'm like, hey, how are you? Yay, happy. And then I accidentally spilled a water tower in Bill Cosby sessions. That's
Mhm.
before he was being sued. That was before he was being sued for whatever that he's being sued for.
Mhm.
And then I cleaned it up, and then I remember the secretary, the front desk lady hated me for some reason. I don't know why. So essentially, they fired me. They let me go. They're like, I don't think you're learning anything. I'm like, what? How did this came very sudden? So I left, and then I was like doing nothing for a few months because once you got fired,
Mm.
you're like, crap. You know,
Mm.
you you don't want to move forward anymore.
Yeah.
So I just I and I was sitting around doing nothing, and one day I'm like, I'm gonna try again because
Mm.
my visa is almost up.
Mm.
Because so in US, if you're in STEM, like science,
Yeah.
technology, engineering, and mathematics,
Yeah.
yeah, I said, is that
Yeah. It's
is that what
correct.
it
It's
stands for,
correct. Yeah.
right? Whew. Yeah, and yeah, so when that happened, when I knew my visa was gonna expire, I'm like, crap, I have to start looking for something new.
Yeah.
So I just found a studios. It wasn't like a legendary studio. It's just a studio that somehow needed an intern then. So I went there. I interviewed. It's a pretty small studio. It's 2 rooms. The whole place is not more than like 2,000 square feet. So the room are pretty small.
Mm.
Nothing was really organized then because everyone think they can run a studio, but no one know exactly what they are doing.
Mm.
So I went there.
Okay.
Essentially,
Jay, can I just stop you there? I
sure.
need to